Man, what a glow up. Donkey Kong. He's quite the character. Possibly the most important one Nintendo's ever made. In 1981, the Donkey Kong arcade game would establish Nintendo as a new and strong contender in the gaming market, and introduce many players to the concept of a platformer. A game where you could jump. It was incredible. Of course, as the years went on, it was eventually Jumpman, later renamed Mario, that became the platformer icon. But nah man, DK was here and fully established from the start. But after 3 arcade games, the titular ape would fade away from Nintendo's conscience for a bit, only getting a few ports to the NES, but never a brand new game for the console. Well, depends on if you count Donkey Kong Jr. math. He simply wasn't needed. There were more than enough platformers on the NES, and far more advanced ones at that. Donkey Kong was an arcade series, perfect for quick little bursts of gameplay, but not engaging enough for a new home console game. But everything changed in 1994, because Nintendo was no longer riding high as the biggest console manufacturer. No, now they were competing with a titan called Sega, with their own powerful console, the Sega Genesis. And there was one game on the console that really stuck out to Nintendo, and no, it wasn't Sonic. Well, yeah, Sonic did stick out to Nintendo, but he's not relevant to this story. No, oddly enough, it was the Sega Genesis version of Aladdin that made an impression. The Super Nintendo had its own version of Aladdin, but the Sega Genesis version was really notable for its graphics back in the day. Almost looking like a playable movie with its detailed character sprites and more fluid animations. Nintendo needed to show that their system was more powerful, but who to use to show off the Super Nintendo's graphical prowess? Maybe Mario? No. He already had an established art style by that point, and so were most Nintendo franchises. They needed someone who hadn't gotten a new game in a while, and who better to fill the role than Donkey Kong. He was still recognizable, and had potential to evolve past his arcade game roots, and so Nintendo handed off the development task to Rare, a British studio mainly known for the Battletoads franchise by that point, but one that Nintendo saw potential in, having also developed so many NES games. And so it was that in 1994, we'd get the revival of Donkey Kong, with Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy following the arcade structure, which fit right in for a handheld game, and of course, the crown jewel, Donkey Kong Country. Now I feel like it's safe to say that I have no nostalgic attachment to this game. My first foray into the series was with Returns on Wii and later Tropical Freeze. That's not to say I didn't emulate the original trilogy, I did, specifically the Game Boy Advance versions on my phone, but most of my memories from back then are focused on DKC 2. I remember very little from 1 and even less from 3. I don't even think I beat it now that I think about it. Nowadays when I want to play a Donkey Kong game, I'll play Tropical Freeze, but I'll still give DKC 2 a spin every once in a while. When it comes to the first game though, I rarely revisit it. Last time I even touched it, I was getting footage for a video that was made a year ago, and even then I only played a single level. So when coming into this video, I knew what to expect, but still went through it with a fresh pair of eyes as if it were my first playthrough. And the first thing anyone notices when playing these games is, wow, this does not look like an SNES game. Remember, this was meant to compete with Aladdin, and with 1994 being just on the precipice of 3D technology, the one way Rare saw to modernize Donkey Kong was making pre-rendered 3D graphics using SGI computers. Sure, just one machine of those cost $70,000 in 1994 money, but who cares? They had Nintendo backing them. The developers had to learn to use them in a very short time, and often had to leave renders running overnight because of how taxing they were on the hardware. Even harder still was compressing these renders to run on the SNES, trying to keep the most important details intact for the sprites to look good and fit on a 4MB cartridge. But at the end of it all, the results speak for themselves. This was very impressive by 1994 standards, even more so for the SNES. Even playing it today, while it's not impressive per se, very few games look like it, either from its era or afterwards. So not only does it look good, but it's also very unique, giving it this timeless quality for what should be a dated game graphically. But apart from the graphical jump, how else were Rare going to modernize Donkey Kong for their 90s audience? Easy answer, give him attitude. Rocking this sweet new design with a red tie, the very first thing this DK does is break his grandfather's old record player and swoop in with the brand new boombox. He's so cool. Oh, and don't worry, Gramps gets his revenge. This Donkey Kong was very 90s if the boombox wasn't a dead giveaway, and has much more personality than throwing barrels, though throwing barrels is just about the only thing from the original game to return for the Country series, Cranky Kong notwithstanding. The game tells of a dark and stormy night where newcomer Diddy Kong was guarding DK's banana horde until the Kremlings came in and captured both said horde and him, leaving it to Donkey to rescue them. You wouldn't know this from the game itself though, you had to go to the manual for that knowledge. And to be honest, it's not like setting up Diddy's capture was important because you rescue him in the first 30 seconds of the game. Your real motivation is the banana horde, which is easily inferred in the game itself. But yeah, Kremlings, banana horde, Diddy, it's all new to Donkey Kong Country because we have a side-scrolling platformer on our hands, and a different one at that. This isn't a Mario game. You're not jumping your way through the Mushroom Kingdom, you're traversing a full-on realistic island with forests, mines, mountains, and later on, even factories as a gorilla. Donkey Kong is heavy, and you feel that in his movement, while simultaneously having some of the best controls of any platformer, thanks to the rolling. One of the best aspects of DK's roll is that you can jump out of it at any time, even in the air, and if you roll into enemies, you actually gain speed. Combine that with Diddy's already faster movement, and you get some of the best sense of flow in a platformer. You can switch to Diddy Kong at any time while playing if you find the DK barrel, and he's my preferred choice of the two. His faster movement, as well as the fact that he holds objects sideways instead of upwards, make me enjoy playing as him more, and that seems to be the common opinion. Some of the stronger Kremlings can only be defeated by Donkey though, so he gets his time to shine too. It's always good to have both Kongs on hand, but you won't always have that option because getting hit means losing the Kong you're playing as until you find another DK barrel, and this game is difficult. If you're playing this game for the first time, expect to die a lot, and in my case, this was often due to getting blindsided by enemies off screen or mistiming jumps. Definitely take it slow on a first playthrough, or you'll find yourself absolutely fuming in the last world, with a few trips to the game over screen. Not helped by the fact that in order to save in this game, you need to reach Candy Kong's save point on the world map. So you could very well find yourself free playing a big chunk of levels if you haven't saved in a bit and lose all your lives. Try to save as often as you can so you can spare yourself the headache. Or heck, wherever you're playing this now, you can save state at the start of a stage and checkpoints if you're running low on lives. Not that you'll need it though if you're thorough. Bonus rooms and collecting the Kong letters will give you more than enough lives, you just need to find them. It helps that the levels to find them in are so fun, because while the game has its issues with enemy placement, the rest of the level design is on point, both in the actual layout as well as variety in both what you'll be doing and what you're seeing. Early levels will be in lush forests or ancient temples, while later ones will be in snowy mountains or hazardous factories. You can see the effect the Kremlings are having on the island as the water turns green or caves become full of smoke and enemies, and the game will take you across many different environments. One level you're on the ground, the next you're on the treetops, and the one after that you might just find yourself in a minecart. Where the game falters though is where it hides its bonus rooms. The vast majority of these things are hidden behind breakable walls with little to no indication that they are breakable. But the most egregious example is an oil drum alley, where there's a bonus room hidden inside of a bonus room where you need to get the worst prize in the first one, then jump into the wall with a barrel so you can make it to the second one before the first one ends. What? Oh, and you need these for 101%. Don't do this to yourself. Just go in for the lives. This type of archaic secret hunting is, in my opinion, the single most dated aspect of this game. One aspect that hasn't aged in the slightest though is the absolutely stunning soundtrack brought to us by David Wise and Evelyn Novakovic, both legendary composers. The majority of the tracks were done by Wise, with the more atmospheric ones being done by Novakovic. Knowing that information, I'm sure you'll be able to tell who did what when playing the levels, but there isn't a single okay track in this soundtrack. It's all great from beginning to end. DK Island Swing, Life in the Mines, Forest Frenzy, Fear Factory, and my two favorites, Aquatic Ambience and Gangplank Galleon, are just some of the best music an SNES has ever produced. And then DKC 2 is even better, and Tropical Freeze is just getting ahead of myself. The reason I have to highlight the soundtrack so much is that it really provides each level with its own feeling and gets you thinking about the environment you're in. For example, whenever I play aquatic ambience, I always imagine what it would be like swimming in the background of the stage and what kind of creatures I might encounter there. It's almost scary actually, but in a way, beautiful that a track and art design can work together to evoke such emotions. The beautiful music can single-handedly make the hard levels in the game more bearable as you die over and over, but can at least take comfort to knowing that you won't get tired of the music. For as hard as the main game can be though, I get the feeling that the team designing the boss fights didn't get the memo. These are quite frankly too easy to an almost comical degree. You can bully the first boss in less than 20 seconds, and when you refight him later on, poor guy can't even last 30. All of them are like this too. It's such a whiplash from how hard the game can usually be, with the distinct exception of King K. Rool, leader of the Kremlings and the final boss of the game. He's actually a bit challenging with his erratic jumping patterns. Find it really funny though how he gets no introduction? All throughout the game you see his ship inching closer to Donkey Kong Island after each world, and when you finally reach him, the battle just starts. No animation, no "you'll never take these bananas, DK." He throws his crown immediately. It caught me off guard. Even better, when you think you finally beat him as easily as all the other fights and the credits start scrolling, you notice that all the names are names of enemies, and the music hasn't stopped. This is supposed to clue you in that the fight isn't actually over, and even though I knew what to expect, he still got me with the longer jumps. So welcome change of pace for the final fight after so many easy ones before it, but soon enough, he too is defeated, and the banana horde is back to its rightful owners. And as the game comes to a close, we get to see the Kongs bickering with each other and get a stern talking to from Cranky for not 100%ing the game. I'm not doing it, but man, what a game. It isn't perfect, far from it actually, but it has a charm that only it and its sequels can replicate. So while it might not be for everyone, and you could just end up pulling your hair out while playing it, I highly recommend you give Donkey Kong Country a go. That being said, have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.